Warning, warning, warning.
This episode of Heroes of the Halcyon contains large spoilers for the Galactic Starcruiser adventure. If you have not yet been on Galactic Starcruiser, you may want to save this episode until after your voyage.
Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as Heroes of the Halcyon.
Good journey, and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge, only Galactic Starcruiser Superfan podcast. I'm Galactic Starcruiser Superfan Christine, and with me are...
Superfan Drew.
And Superfan Martin.
Well, this week we've got another fantastic episode of one of our favorite things to do, and that is Sublight Circle. Today we've got a big group to go over.
I was a little worried that the group was so large, but it turned out spectacular. So much fun.
Well, it's really so much fun that we have this much great listener response and everyone wants to be in one of these episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, we are gathering people for a future Sublight Circle episode as well. So if you haven't already sent us an email to heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com to join a future Sublight Circle, we'd love to hear from you so that we can bring you in later.
Well,
Yes.
I'll tell you what, let's get the fun started.
All right, welcome to our next Sublight Circle. Thank you all very much for joining us. We've got a pretty big group today. Much like the airlines, we may have overbooked a little bit just in case people didn't drop, but we were super lucky that 8 of you joined us today. So thank you very much for joining us. Let's do a quick round of introduction. Keith and Dee, why don't we start with you?
We're Keith and Dee Davis. We are super fans, and we are from North Carolina.
Nice, excellent. Representing the fine folks on that coast. Brian Anderson, how about you?
So I also am a Starcruiser superfan. I'm coming to you from Massachusetts, up in the cold, wet Northeast.
Wow, we're sticking to the East Coast so far. I see a theme. This is good. Elizabeth, how about you?
My name's Elizabeth Baker, still representing the East Coast here in Georgia.
Nice.
Awesome.
We're sticking to a theme. This is great. Brian Shapiro, how about you, sir?
I am also a Starcruiser superfan, and I'm coming to you from just outside of Philadelphia.
Excellent.
Also in the East Coast.
Yeah, still sticking.
Go
That's
Eagles.
Good. That's good. Going nice. Yes, indeed. Well, how about you, Jess?
I am going to break the East Coast streak. I am from Los Angeles, California, very close to Batu West. And yes, so I am representing the West Coast.
Woohoo.
Oh, that's excellent. So we're holding down this side of that's good.
Yeah.
And Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm a super fan, of course, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so back on the east side of the country.
Excellent. Very nice. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Pennsylvania area. I used to think I was going to live in Philadelphia, but then circumstances changed. But and I love Pittsburgh too, man. The Primanti Brothers sandwiches are the bomb diggity.
Definitely something you have to get if you ever come here.
Yep.
It's got nothing on Roundtable roasters.
That's true. That's true. Good point. And Jim, let's round things up with you.
Sure. I'm Jim Braden, also a super fan, and I'll take the South. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Excellent. Excellent. Nice. So
Awesome.
Folks who are able to see Jim's video screen, if you are able to. Jim, we were commenting on your background. Normally you were saying that maybe you blur this for meetings?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. It tends to derail meetings.
Sure. Sometimes people want to go, well, I need to know what that thing is. And what is that thing?
Yeah.
Sure. And Brian Anderson, you had mentioned you don't blur your screen. You just have your droid companions with you there all the time.
Yep, I do the exact opposite. I'll change my camera angle. This whole room that I'm in is all props and collectibles and masks and helmets and stuff.
Nice.
So
Awesome.
I'll rotate which side of the room the camera's facing, but I always leave it on. I think it's a great conversation starter in a meeting.
That's cool. Well, let's get started. I am very curious. One of the things, if you've listened to our podcast in the past, you must be aware that we like to start by hearing people's relationship with Star Wars. And I'm going to mix things up a little bit just to keep folks on their toes. And Brian Anderson, let's start with you. What's your relationship to Star Wars, and how did you get involved with the cult of George Lucas?
Well, one of my earliest memories as a kid is seeing Empire Strikes Back in the movie theater. And the film reel broke during the Dagobah training montage.
Oh.
So we were watching the movie, the film broke, and it was a good hour because back then it was like actually someone splicing real film together in a clean room somewhere. So we had about an hour break in the middle of the training montage and then picked the movie back up from there. And
wow.
so that's how far back my fandom goes. And it's been consistent ever since. Like today, I'm actually celebrating my 19th year in the 501st Legion.
Oh, wow.
So I've been dressing up like a stormtrooper for 19 years now.
Well, Elizabeth, I have to know. First of all, for those of you who can't see Elizabeth, she's wearing just a great Sammy outfit. I need to know your details with Star Wars, Elizabeth.
Well, okay. So growing up, my mom was a big OG fan. Grew up with it in the house, of course. It was very important to her, and she shared it with me. Kind of thought of it as her thing for a while. And then when I kind of grew up and moved out and Force Awakens came out and stuff like that, I formed my own relationship with it too. And now I'm just as crazy, if not more crazy than she is.
So did you make that, or is that a purchased Sammy outfit? I have to know.
I am very small, and this is a child's extra large.
Oh, nice. You're lucky.
They never have my sizes in stock for anything.
Well, when we went for the first cruise, I mean, one of the character things we were kicking around was a mechanic, and I was like, they only have, dang it, I can't work. So I'm jealous. I am jealous because it looks amazing. Well, Brian Shapiro, let's move over to you. What's your background with Star Wars?
So I saw the original film when it was in theaters in '77, and I walked out. I remember I didn't understand the story at all, but I knew it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. So, and then saw it a bunch of times, and got me not only interested in Star Wars, but I became obsessed about filmmaking. I'm sure like every kid back in the 80s, we all got our cameras out. We're experimenting with our own special effects and things like that,
right.
And collecting all the toys, reading all the books and comics. Also in the 501st, that was my pandemic project when I was home from work, was to work on a costume and finally join the real world. I'm a dentist, so patients know when they're in my chair, you are going to be either watching a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars series or something on the TV.
That's awesome.
While you're sitting there. So.
Well, and now that you mentioned you're a dentist, Brian, I have to say I'm now placing all your pictures that I've seen on Facebook, and so they're all coming back in. So I love all that. Those are fabulous pictures. That's great.
Thank you.
Why don't we go down from my perspective? Sarah, why don't you tell us about your background with Star Wars?
So I grew up with Star Wars. My parents were fans. I actually grew up in a household that was Star Wars and Star Trek. So I never really understood the whole, you have to be one or the other, because I was both my whole life. And then when the movies were re-released in the theaters before Phantom Menace came out, I went multiple times to see them on the big screen. It was the coolest thing ever. So I've been, a fan for a long time. I have a Star Wars tattoo. I write Star Wars fan fiction. Yeah, I definitely consider myself a super fan for Star Wars. People in my life know they were not surprised when I said I did Starcruiser. So I feel like at least in that sense, people that I know understand my love for it.
That's cool. What area of fan fiction do you like to specialize in, or are you just whatever suits your fancy?
Whatever suits my fancy. I am a big Organa fan, so I like Bail and Bria a lot. I love Alderaan, so I write a lot of that. Nice. I just participated in a Rare Pairs Star Wars exchange. So I really love the opportunity to write gifts for other people who, give prompts and everything like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, we're going to throw a little shout out to a future, very soon upcoming episode with some Star Wars fan fiction.
Yes.
So
very excited.
Stay tuned.
Definitely have to tune in for that.
I will.
And I have to ask too, what is the tattoo of?
Oh, the tattoo is a neon kind of version of the Rebel Alliance symbol on my arm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very cool.
Jim Braden, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Not your real background with Star Wars, but
My background is sort of a mess. My first Star Wars movie was Empire, and I was 5, I guess, when I saw that. And so I had missed out on the original Star Wars. And so I had to sort of recreate the original Star Wars from the Story of Star Wars record and my action figures and the Star Wars storybook. So I had a sense of what the visuals were. And so I had to recreate the movie, with toys for about 3 years. And so by the time I finally saw the movie, I was like, oh, I got that right. No, that's not. So, but yeah, eventually I got caught up and then got to see Jedi.
How many of us can remember just sitting around at the portable record players, listening to the Story of Star Wars record?
Oh, yeah.
Infinitely. Like, how many millions of times do we listen to the 8 tracks? I mean, we had the 8 tracks back then. That was amazing.
And I could see the first time you saw it, you were like, I thought Han would be taller.
Pretty much.
That's awesome. Jess, let's go over to you. Let's hear about your background with Star Wars.
Yes, I actually came to Star Wars a little bit later. I first saw, I think it was Return of the Jedi in college. I was in a mythology class and the professor screened all 3 movies. And I think now looking back, I just think he wanted like a refresh before Attack of the Clones came out because it was around that time. So when I saw it, I just instantly became obsessed. The first one that I saw in the theater was Attack of the Clones, and just like the early 2000s angst, like I was all about that and became obsessed. And then my super fandom like really went into like high gear when Disney acquired Lucasfilm. I have always been a Disney fan. Like, as I mentioned, I live very close to Disneyland. So I've just always been a Disney fan. And so when people meet me or like on like profiles, I often say like I'm the love child of like a Disney princess and a Star Wars villain. Nice. So when Disney and Star Wars came together, it was just everything. So that's my background. Like I try to go to Batu at least once a week if work allows. And yeah, when I went to the Starcruiser, it was just everything.
That's awesome. Well, Leia is Vader's daughter, so that's already there.
Yes.
So that's good.
So I'm still stuck on Batu once a week. That's like living the dream right there.
I'm lucky.
That's great. Do you just go grab a Ronto roaster and people watch, or?
That's exactly what I do. So nice. It's like my favorite is like the Black Calf, nice. Which I don't know if you guys have had it. It's so good. But on Batu East, it's actually alcoholic. Like ours is not. So I'm like jealous of that. So that's exactly what I'll do. If I have like an hour or 2 after work, I'll just go like grab something to eat, people watch. I'm trying to play also the Bounty Hunter game, but we could talk about that later because it's not very successful.
Very cool. Well, let's round things out with Keith and Dee. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your background with Star Wars?
Sure. I saw the original in theaters 12 times when I was 12 and the 13th time when I was 13. And my enthusiasm was infectious, so it became a family thing with my parents.
Okay.
And we were into all the movies. And then when we had kids, they got into the movies. So it's now 4-generational Star Wars enthusiasm.
Yes. I was just short of being 10 years old when it came out. And so my dad took my sisters and I to go see it. And Mom said, I have no interest. Do you go enjoy? The minute that ta-da came on, I was like, I was hooked. So this has been our whole life, basically.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's Star Wars.
So let's talk a little bit about everybody's voyage. So starting with Sarah, I know you went really early on.
Yeah, my voyage was early March. It was March 9th through 11th, so the 5th voyage. If anyone follows any of the Facebook groups, you might know that it was the voyage with Joey Fatone from NSYNC.
Awesome.
That was really funny because before we even went, I kind of thought, like, I wonder if famous people would do this too. And then he was right behind us in line as we were onboarding. We had plans to go to Disney already, and it was we had planned our trip, and then they announced that the first voyage would be March 1st. And I like half jokingly said to my mom, like, oh, why don't we do the Starcruiser too? And she kind of just ran with it. Our travel agent was on hold for a very long time when the AP reservations went in, and she managed to get us a booking. And so we went in, with no spoilers. We didn't do any information in advance. Yeah, super early. I mean, I would love to do it again and have the opportunity now that I know more and now that I've done it once. But it was really cool because it was super early and because everyone there was kind of having the same experience without, having all the information.
Right. And what was it like going with your parents?
I go with my parents to Disney a lot. I'm single, childless, but I love to travel. I love my parents. They have annual passes, even though they're also here in Pittsburgh. So they go multiple times a year. They go every March, and every once in a while I join them. And so this was one of the years that I decided to go with them. And I guess I don't know how I really convinced them to also do Starcruiser, but I did. I think they both had a pretty good time as well. Like I said, they've been big Star Wars fans. My mom did tell me when I was telling her I was going to do this podcast that one of the things that she kind of wishes she knew was just how much more you can interact, and because she felt very overwhelmed. And as soon as we got off, we immediately said, wait, let's do this again. There are so many other things we wanted to do. But yeah, it was really cool going with them. I get along really great with them. We had a good time. We, debriefed for days at Disney afterwards because we had the rest of our trip to get to.
Well, Elizabeth, I know you went with your parents too. What was that like?
I mean, pretty great. So I pretty much bought into the idea of the experience as soon as I saw the first concept art. and was super excited about the concept of getting to do something like that, because I am the type of person who has always sort of wanted to run away to a fictional world. And as soon as the opening day cruise and stuff happened and we started seeing videos about it pop up on YouTube and stuff, my mom and I basically started conspiring about it. My dad is not the biggest Star Wars fan, but of course he listens to us go on and on about it. But he actually really got into it while he was there, which was great to see. It was a lot of fun. Usually he's kind of the social butterfly of our family who can talk to a wall, will talk to whoever's in line with him at the supermarket. And me and my mom are both like, I don't know how you do that, but I can't do it. And it was a nice little role reversal when we got on the Starcruiser, because me and my mom suddenly know how to talk to anybody in there about Star Wars and get into character and what's going on. And he's looking around like, I don't know what to anybody in here.
Has anybody seen Boba Fett?
Osmium Prime, you say?
Let's see. Brian Anderson, tell us about being on Starcruiser on May the 4th be with you.
Oh.
So I was one of the sort of waiting in the massive queue on the first pre-release booking day for annual pass holders. And as we were on the phone, like I was called in and my travel agent was called in, and we were like both trying to get through. I had my heart set on May 4th. I really wanted this to be, Star Wars Day in space. Finally getting there after, I've been sort of obsessively following this project since the first hints at it and scrounging every little detail I could. Actually being there, it was just this amazing moment of like, it's May the 4th and I'm in space with Star Wars, and it's amazing. Like it was such a great time. And as soon as I was done, we're all like, we're doing this again next year, right? Okay, yeah, next year.
That's fabulous.
And by the way, everybody's neck is going to be really sore, because as you're listening, we'll all be just nodding, going, yep, we get it, we get it.
So Keith and Dee, you went in April, which was still fairly early on. How was your cruise?
It was absolutely fun. I just, stepping into the atrium as we're getting on, it's like, oh my goodness. This was Keith was seeing all the things that had when when the concept art came out, he said, you have to see this. We've got to do this. I said, okay. And as it became more and more, and when spoilers came out, he was reading and seeing everything. I said, I don't want to know anything. I'll know.
I went spoiler heavy. She went spoiler new.
Oh, nice.
Like, okay, stop here. I will experience it from there out. Now, our daughter who's coming, our eldest daughter said, okay, I don't want to know anything. And then about a week later, she says, okay, I've seen all these things. I know all these things. But the entire cruise was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And, we were looking forward to being able to come back again. And we were planning much longer time from now to be able to go back again. But
getting that later.
Yeah.
So Keith, do you regret going spoiler heavy, or do you wish you had kind of laid off? Or
I almost wish I could have done more.
Oh, interesting.
I've been doing all kinds of research for our next trip, just to take advantage of opportunities that you may not know were coming up if you didn't have that information.
And Jim, you went in July with your wife and 2 kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
What was it like going with your kids, and how heavy is your wife into Star Wars?
All right, so she's not into Star Wars at all. So it was a tough sell. I felt kind of irresponsible even thinking about it when they first announced it. And so I sort of did the sour grapes thing, like, it's probably not that great. Like, I'm not really missing out. It's killing me,
Right.
And then we started talking about taking the kids to Disney, and it's like, well, I don't know, there's that hotel. And my wife's like, well, I don't know, you want to go? I'm like, yeah, I do. So even my kids are 13, 5, and they were like, well, this is kind of like dad's trip. But yeah, my wife is not into the costuming thing, but I dressed up and I got my kids too. Nice. My 5-year-old had no idea what was going on. He's still not sure if we really went to space or not. And so I'm not really sure how to talk about it. But my 13-year-old, he's just at the cusp of being self-conscious about everything. And so I got him to dress up a little bit, but he was really nervous at first. And then by the end, like I was sort of guiding him toward like, all right, hey, we got to carry Gaia's luggage. Like, take it over to her, give her the passphrase and all that. And he started getting into it. And by the end, he was like, Dad, this is awesome. He was totally loving it, totally into it.
That's
so
great.
that would be great.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, it really is. Whether you have kids or don't, it really is amazing to see how the cast and crew really work with the kids. And they don't treat them like kids. They treat them like part of the story. And they're always involved. They always know how to direct. And it's fantastic to see. And to see their little eyes light up, it's awesome. So Jessica, you went in September and you went by yourself. Tell us about that.
I did. Well, I was originally going to go with my sister and a friend, and they ended up having to drop out like at the last minute. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. It's like, there's like that 30-day cancellation window. Like one of my friends, he canceled before, so he, got compensated or his refund. But my sister, they're like, no, like we can't like give you anything. And I'm like, I'm going without you. So I went. But no, that's like, I felt a little bad, but we're going together in a couple, like I think less than 60 days. So
that's great. Wow.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that. But I'm an extrovert. And so it's like I've traveled alone before. So this was, I'm just going to like, this was for those people who are like, can't get like a big group or can't find someone on Sweet Finder. It's awesome in a way to go alone because it's like you could just do whatever you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I absolutely loved, that I didn't, have to check in with like friends, make sure that they, were like, doing things. Cause it's like my other two friends, they are not or my sister, she's a big Star Wars fan, but not like obsessed like I am. And my other friend, he's like Star Wars light. So I sort of figured, I would have to like explain stuff to them or, about characters or backstory. And so going alone, that's like one of the benefits. Like I was just like all about me. And then within like, 5 minutes, it's like I ended up meeting friends, and it's like everyone there is so friendly. I felt super safe. And yeah, what you guys said about like how the cast handles kids, it's like when I was there, I was like, should I have a kid? Because it's like the way they interacted with the kids, it was so awesome. So even sometimes I would just like step, back because I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But like when we talk about what paths we took, there's like one path that all the little kids just like run to this character. Mm-hmm. And so, I let them have their fun, but it was just so awesome just seeing other people and especially young people interact with the staff, like, and the cast members. That was like one of the highlights for me. That was very unexpected.
That's cool. Did they seat you by yourself at dinner, or were you able to?
Yeah, no, they sat me by myself at dinner. And I think that unlocked a major thing because one of the cast members actually came and sat with me.
That's cool.
Yeah, and should I just tell you guys now? Or wait?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll talk about it later, but sure, tell us a little bit now.
Sandro came and had dinner with me the first night, so it was just like me and Sandro, and I like did a little bit of research, so I knew who the main characters were, but I didn't know much about like the subplot characters. Mm-hmm. So at first I didn't even know if Sandro was a cast member or just a fan. And since we were at dinner, he wasn't wearing a mic.
Oh, that's great. Oh, wow.
And so that would not have happened, I don't think, had I, been with a group of people. So that was another benefit.
Oh, that's great. Did he see you when you walked through and just go, oh, how did that happen?
I was like trying to think of that because I don't know if like maybe one of the other cast members like told him, hey, like, there's a person there. And I went like Disney bounding. So it's like, I guess like it's like a cosplay light that we do a lot here, like in Disneyland, where it's like sort of like this. So it's like I'm sort of with like my Galactic stuff on, and I did it as like a stormtrooper both nights. So Nice. They knew that I wanted to play, and so I think one of the cast members must have said something like, "She wants to play. She's alone." So like, and that was like this was within like 5 minutes of dinner starting.
Wow,
so I think they just wanted to make sure that I had someone to play with in case I didn't make friends, on my own. So it was amazing. We'll talk about that more.
I'm just putting this out now. Drew Martin, you will need to find your own table.
You get
Yes.
it
In May.
And like we'll talk about it when we like talk about like our own paths, but I didn't even know I was doing a story until after, and then I was consuming everything to find out more information for the second voyage. And I'm like, oh my God, I did half of the rom-com.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
See, to me, this is, I don't really think that they got advanced information. The cast members are so amazing at just sussing out what everyone needs. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for opportunities to engage at all times. And like you said, you came to play. They saw you came to play, and they're so good at just looking at a whole room of people saying, this is what every single one of these people needs, and just diving for it.
I'm sure the dining crew said,
we got a solo at 4.
I know. No, that's exactly what I think happened.
And they know exactly how to engage. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oof. And Brian Shapiro, you are our most recent Voyager in October. So tell us about your trip. I know you went with a friend of yours.
Yes. So I went with a friend of mine that we went to dental school together like 30 years ago. And we're both very active people. We're both early risers. And from the time we met, we thought, oh, it'd be really great to someday do Disney together, because we would be on the go. And of course, never get around to it. He's married with kids. I'm married with my kids. Star Wars is not my wife's cup of tea. My son loves it. My daughter, they're both grown. She's not as into it. So over the years, we got to do that Disney trip one day, the two of us. And then, of course, when they announced the hotel and everything, we said, okay, this is it. This is what we're going to do. It looks like it's going to be something active. So we signed up to do it. I've been to lots of Comic-Cons and, doing the 501st thing, playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm used to role play and gaming and things like that and cosplay. He's not really. So when it came time to going, I figured let's go with, what we know, which is, dentistry. So, we went as we called ourselves xenodontists. We were dentists in space, and we were two dads, so it was just all one bad dad joke. I was Denton Star Driller from Star Driller base, on the planet Dentooine, and we were from the Top Gun Academy, and it was just as we would tell cast members and crew our story, you could see them trying not to smirk. We gave out flosses. In Arabesh, we tell everybody, may the floss be with you, or the floss is strong with you. I gave Chewbacca a giant toothbrush, and that got me a big hug. And each time he saw me, he would open his mouth and show me that he's been brushing. We'd like, that's great.
That's great.
We have seen over the years. Hundreds of different people's CSLs, because we do these Kenner style action figure card backs for people. People send us the CSLs, we give them this. And Brian, your CSLs are some of the most amazing, hilarious, and you just dove for that concept, and it landed so hard. It was. I just couldn't stop looking at these, going, "This is how you get to play inside Star Wars." Where else could you do that but Galactic Starcruiser? And you just took so advantage. And I wish we could show everyone these. You need to post these CSLs somewhere on our Instagram, because they're just the most amazing.
Well, one thing that was fun was so we had I bought a wart from eBay, from Return of the Jedi, one of the creatures that they used to sell in Galaxy's Edge. I put braces on it and, made it have a gold tooth, and I carried it around as a patient. So we named it Mort the Wart. So when we were in line to go onto Starcruiser, there were these two young kids, and they were fascinated by it. So they came up to check it out, and we told them, we were dentists from space, and we gave them the floss and everything. And they said, we have porgs with us. Can you check our porgs' teeth later? So we said, yeah. So later on in the cruise, they came up and brought us, their porgs, and we had little mirrors on us. So we checked the porg's teeth, and all through the trip we would bump into them. And kids are really great. They at dinner we got those pieces of paper. They were good at putting it all together, and and every once in a while we would see them. So on the last night, I said to my friend, because we had extra mirrors and things with us, let's go over to their table. So we went over to their table, and we gave them each a mirror, and we told them, you guys go home to your planet. We're making you guys honorary dentists, so you can take care of your creature's teeth, once you return home. And they were so thrilled. And, the parents, so we got to get pictures of you all together. And so that was a lot of fun. So it would be great to know if in 20 years from now, if one of them actually becomes a dentist.
Sure.
And someone says, why did you become a dentist? Like, I don't know, I was on some spaceship.
Or a vet dental tech for their birds or something. Yeah, that's awesome.
And now those two dentists are canon in Star Wars.
The dentists are canon.
Yes. That's amazing.
It's funny. I remember someone asked on an earlier Sublight Lounge, are we canon? Yeah, we're all canon. Now go figure, because there's a lot of people that are canon now. But kind of moving on to the next kind of question for the group is, there's going to be a wide variety of answers here. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. Did you go in costume and or character? Now, let's hear what each of you kind of what you did. And Elizabeth Baker, let's start with you. What did you do for your costume and character?
So I ended up kind of writing the backstory for my whole family. My mom had a little bit of a concept for what she wanted to do. She knew she wanted to be like an animal trader. And my dad really liked motorcycle racing, so he knew he wanted to be a racer. I love droids, and I knew I wanted to be a droidsmith. But I ended up writing a backstory for all of us that were from Corellia. And I have a droid customization and maintenance shop there. But I'm also a droid rights activist. So I specialize in restoring lost memories from droids. They're important so that they can have their personalities and stuff intact. So I printed this Lola-style droid to take with me. And that was like really kind of the main component of my costume. It had like a vest and code cylinders and whatnot. So Lola was really the main component of my costume that was the most important. Walk around and be my little buddy.
Now, did you see what percentage-wise? And again, this is a broad spectrum. What percentage of the people on your cruise did have like some kind of notable costume?
I guess not that many people on our cruise went like all out. I want to say it was probably like 50-50 people that had some kind of costume, people that didn't. There was nobody walking around in like crazy face paint or anything like that. On my cruise, there were a couple other people walking around with like droids and stuff, but it wasn't as huge of a portion. And I feel like my family ended up getting a lot of attention because I had a droid.
Oh, that's
and I
cool.
felt really lucky.
That's cool.
You say crazy face paint like it's a bad thing.
No, not like a bad thing.
Let's take this fight out of the airlock. Well, let's go. Sarah Reck, what did you do for a costume and character?
So I kind of wanted to do characters. I do Dungeons and Dragons and everything like that. So I wanted to put together some characters. My parents weren't super into like being another person. And I think that kind of deterred me. Like I went in thinking of a backstory and thinking of a name and everything. And then once we got there, we just stayed who we were. So I think that I would probably change that the next time and really try to like completely inhabit someone else. But as far as like costuming went, we did get my dad full Jedi robes from Amazon so that he could wear those the whole time. And my mom and I kind of did like what Jess was saying with like some bounding type clothes. I did buy like this really great gold jumpsuit that had a cape on it for like the second night dinner. Tried to just have things that looked a little bit spacey. The day that we did our excursion to Batuu, I tried to kind of look like maybe I had been, a rebel on Endor or something like that. So I kind of found clothes, and same with my mom. We did a lot of online shopping to get something that worked and felt like we were being someone else, but we didn't really necessarily go full on being someone else. One thing my mom did, she did a little bit more. I know we only went so early, but she did a little more spoilers than I did. And she had heard that it was good to have something that the cast members could always remember you by. So I think like with Elizabeth, you mentioned the droid. My mom had bought these really cool earrings that kind of like looked like leaves and they went all the way up. And they ended up breaking the second day, which she was really disappointed on because people seemed to have remembered who she was because of those. And then she was a little disappointed that when they broke, then she was like, are they going to still know who I am? I don't think it really changed anything, but she definitely had that. I wore my Alderaan symbol the whole time to try to at least have something identifiable no matter what I was wearing. And then I wore my space buns.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah. Brian, I know we heard a little bit about your story, but can you kind of just, for this segment...
Which Brian, by golly?
Oh, Brian Shapiro. Can we just get a little bit more about your dentist character?
Yeah, we just had a lot of fun with it. Giving out the floss packets, that turned out to be really popular. I know on day 2, Rafe told me, I did use it last night. And a lot of crew kept coming up to us, and they were like, "Hi, you're the dentist, right?" And we were like, "Yeah." And we kind of had a feeling, they probably want a floss packet. So I had about 200 of them on me, and at the end, whatever was left, I gave to the front desk to give to whoever didn't get. But people were always telling us, how they were using them, and we gave them to passengers, like whoever was around. So that was a lot of fun. And then of course we had a really good time with the CSL package, bringing all the props for that and interacting with the kids and and everything like that. But it sounded like it was pretty popular. I also made teeth out of acrylic that were supposed to be teeth from different alien species, and painted them up to what I thought they might look like. And I had them on in my backpack. So at one point I was in the climate simulator, and one of the Sajas was there, and we started talking about. I told him like when I'm working on people and taking away their pain, I feel this connection to something bigger than me. And he says, "Take people's pain away, aren't you a dentist?" Like he kind of broke character, like no, and that started a whole conversation, and then I guess you can kind of figure where that went with the climate simulator. Next thing you know, we're stacking rocks, and
that's
he
awesome.
wanted to we're talking spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay, so so we did move the rock, and there was a group of people in the climate simulator who saw that, and it was kind of funny because every time we bumped into those people in the hallways, they would be like, "What?" Backing up from us. So yes, that was a lot of fun.
Like you said earlier, the way of the Floss is strong, so it's good.
The way of the Floss, yes.
We've actually heard that from several folks, over the past several months, is that every single cruise has got its own set of running jokes between the cast and different passengers and whatnot, and the crew and the cast have to refresh every 2 days and know what's going on with each set of people, because just the tracking is amazing. But Jess, tell us about your costuming and character.
So this time I just went as a stormtrooper Disney bounding. So white outfits with black trim and my little stormtrooper Loungefly backpack. And one of the highlights though was one of the stormtroopers, when he saw me, there was some commotion going on. And so he pointed to me and he's like, "Oh, Stormtrooper Jess is here. We have backup." So that was fun. So I really didn't have a character this time other than the bounding. But for my next voyage, I full on have a character. I am going to go as a Danielle Steele type character. So a romance novelist.
Great.
And then I'm going with my sister. We're also mixing a little bit of Paris and Nikki Hilton. So we're going to, go
awesome.
Go dressed like that. I'm going to have my little loft hat with me all the time. And I'm making merch too. I'm commissioning. It's almost done. I'll send you guys one when I'm done, because I became the Coruscant best-selling author of Gone with the Wind. So, and I am going on the voyage because I need inspiration for my next novel. So I'm looking for adventure and romance. And so, I'm really excited. And because of some of the storylines that I now know about, I'm going to definitely try to hang out in the climate simulator a little bit and say that, sometimes I just channel these stories with me. So I don't know if it's the fourth or not. So I'm really excited.
Very cool. I love it.
We share the Heroes of the Halcyon email, and frequently I'll go in and I'll be back and forth, and usually Christine manages a lot of that communication. But Jess, I read your email, and I know you, and I was like, just as soon as I said "Gone with the Wind," I need to write to you. This is so great.
I know. I got that, and I'm so excited to show you when the cover is done. So I'm gonna make little postcards for some of the passengers, because I already saw some of the sketch of it, and it's so funny. But for the cast members, I want to make it into a little notebook, so then it looks like a book, but then they can have a little notebook.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Well, Brian Anderson, you did something really cool for your cruise. Tell us about it.
I mentioned earlier, I was one of the sort of pass holder preview bookings. And I booked for May. So I had a really long time between I've booked this and I'm going. So I had a lot of time on my hands to obsess. So my character backstory dated all the way back to the Clone Wars. I had a whole familial history that led up to my character. So my character was part of the Mandalorian Death Watch back in the Clone Wars. Well, his family was. And when Death Watch aligned with Darth Maul, his family sort of took off their helmets and walked away because they just weren't willing to go that far. But the old family armor had been kicking around for generations, and I got a hold of it. I ended up becoming kind of like a space thug, scoundrel type for hire who is currently working for Hondo Ohnaka. My job was to basically show up in the scary Mandalorian armor and make people do what Hondo wanted. And he sent me onto the Halcyon because something big was happening that he needed eyes on. And so my job there was to represent the interests of Onaka Transport Solutions, a very legitimate business.
Entirely legitimate, yes.
And so I was decked out in full head-to-toe Mando armor, like backplate, chest plate, shins, elbows, forearms, everything.
Well,
awesome.
We are definitely members of the Hondo Appreciation Society over here.
Yes.
One of our very favorite characters. And Keith and Dee, can you tell us about what you did for your voyage?
Well, we had never done anything like this. And so we were a little hesitant. So I had gone out and earlier gotten the tan Jedi coat. And then I threw on that a scarf I got in Afghanistan while serving and put it over top and got a leather thing across. So I didn't look Jedi, but I was in Galaxy. Mm-hmm. And Dee had somebody help her get some stuff together that was in Galaxy, but it wasn't necessarily a character. Mm-hmm. And then we decided we were from Kuat, which was a run by families, not the Empire or Resistance. So we were from Kuat. I was a retired military intelligence officer and had worked for the families. And Dee had taught the school children who worked on the ring around Kuat.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we just really had a good time with that. It was great because on one of these, you fly to Kuat. And so we walked onto the bridge. And I said, that's our home planet. So we had a really good time with that.
That's cool.
Well, Dee, can you tell us a little bit about your outfit?
Oh, my outfits, it was difficult to find a costume that would work for me. So I thought I wanted to be able to wear the clothes afterwards. So I just chose patterns and then fabrics that would work within universe and that I'd be able to use afterwards too. So I was looking at some of the costumes of people that were going on voyages before us, and a gal had the exact same pattern of fabric for her dressy dress as I had for mine. I said, oh, but we're not in the same voyage.
Right. That would be gauche. We don't want to do that. Sure.
Who wore it best?
So, I mean, but it's okay. You're yourself, yet you're still in costume. And I always had something. We had name tags actually in Arabesh that had our names on it. But this time we're doing something totally different this time around.
And to answer the other question, on our trip, almost everybody was in some kind of an outfit. There was like one guy and his adult son, wearing shorts and a T-shirt, and they stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
sure.
Because they were different.
It's if you don't want to dress up, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you want to dress up, go for it.
Yep.
It's to what degree you want to do this. I'm a very introverted person, and for me to dress up and I thought, yes, I'll do this because I don't know these people.
Exactly.
But Starcruiser is the perfect outlet to be able to make that jump.
Yes,
I had never done something this significant, a cosplaying character ever. We've been going to conventions for, 20 years all the time, but we had never done the dress up, the character, the whole thing. And Starcruiser is just amazing what it brings out of people. What other vacation did you create outfits for like this? I mean, it's astounding.
Exactly. I did a lot of stuff with my hair. So I said I grew my hair longer again for this time. It's growing longer again. I said I'm doing different hairstyles. So at least my hairstyles were just I kind of aligned myself with Leia Organa. I said that's my gal.
Nice. That's
always been my gal.
Well, Jim, can you tell us a little bit about what you and your family did, costume and character wise?
So I played a lot of Star Wars Galaxies back in the day, which was an online RPG. There were different servers, and one of them was more of a role play server. So I was on that for years. And I was in a guild, and we all sort of got to know each other, but as our characters. And so by the time I went on the Starcruiser, the game was set in the original trilogy era. So by the time I went on the Starcruiser, I had this massive amount of headcanon.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
And kind of like Brian Anderson, I played a tabletop RPG set in the Clone Wars where I played that character's dad. So I had a whole, thing, but I wasn't going to bore any of the cast or anybody else with all that stuff. It was just in my head. But that character, runs a mining operation, very legitimate business. But on the sly, I sort of use that as cover for going around collecting, Jedi and Sith relics and selling them on the black market and all that kind of stuff. that was sort of my background. And then my oldest son was, my son. So I'm sort of passing the torch on to him as a character. My youngest son he really couldn't get a handle on it. So he went he loves stormtroopers. He went full Imperial, couldn't wait. He was going to go and be like an undercover guy for the Empire. And my wife was going to be like, this princess that he was escorting, but she was secretly working for the Resistance. And as soon as we got in there, he was scared of the stormtroopers, and Croy came up to talk to him, and he was like, "My mom's in the Resistance, and I'm not." He just totally blew the whole undercover thing. Croy loved that, and so we sat at the captain's table on the second night, and that's when Croy at the table. And so he came over, and it just happened to work out where my youngest was sitting next to him. And so they bring out the little coloring book for the kids, which is awesome. So you had like an in-universe coloring book. And there's some blank pages toward the back. And so, my boy's drawing, he's got an AT-AT and he's got some snow speeders coming in. And Croy leans over and is like, "Oh, and young man, what are you working on over there?" And, I'm drawing, Star Wars. I've got, the AT-ATs fighting. He's, "Oh, very interesting. And who's winning?" The AT-ATs. And he's like, "As it should be." So that was it. So he was in with Croy from that point out. Okay. But awesome. my oldest son and I went, more the Wraith Cole route. And, to get in with Wraith, I said, I used to know your dad. Like he sort of taught me everything I knew, about smuggling. So from that, we were in his like inner circle. And he was always like, and you guys, like, I couldn't have done it without you. And man, we are going to have to, I got to hear your stories about my old man, because I didn't know him that well growing up on Ryloth. Like he just took it and rolled it right into his story. And so, we were always kind of around, and he kept saying it. And then finally, toward the end of the second day, he came into the lounge, and I was hanging out, and he's like, look, you gotta tell me. And so we ended up having a 15-minute conversation that I got to sort of dump out some of the backstory that I had, and it was awesome. That was like the most spectacular.
That's so great.
Okay. I am furiously Googling and eBaying
the coloring book
yeah. Starcruiser. I gotta get me one of those. That's happening.
Great.
Well, let's stick with it, Jim. Let's go back around the other way. You talked a little bit about the path that you chose for your voyage, Jim. Can you tell us a little bit more about what paths and what storylines you followed?
Yeah, so I had actually tried not to hear too much about any of the storylines or any of the characters. You can't help but learn some of it just by virtue of planning the trip and kind of knowing what you're in for. But I tried to avoid the spoilers, and I didn't tell anybody else in the family anything. So when we went in, we just sort of naturally gravitated toward Wraith anyway. But I was like, there's a smuggler type thing. Didn't so much want to get into the Jedi. Didn't so much want to go First Order. And that's it. Wraith was our guy right from the beginning. And we had, obviously different people play the characters. We had the Wraith who kind of looks like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Yes. If you know that guy. Mm-hmm. And he killed it. He was amazing. He was cool, just the way he played the character. And he won my 13-year-old over. So by the end, he was like, that guy is the coolest. So we got pictures with him and everything. And it made things work so well. And so, afterwards, I wondered if the kids would feel like they missed out on, the more Jedi-oriented stuff. And they absolutely didn't. No problem. They were totally into that path. And I think all the paths seem to be able to do that. Like whatever path you choose, you're going to have the FOMO of the stuff you didn't do, but you don't regret the thing that you did do. I've never talked to anybody or seen anybody who's like, I don't know, it was okay, but I really wish I'd gone the other route. Yeah. It just seems like it works out.
Well, and they got to be on Gaia's luggage crew, I think you had mentioned earlier on.
Yep. Yeah, we were right there in the core group of like 4 or 5 people that, did all the things, as part of the heist and as part of moving Gaia's luggage and all that. And my son got to go tell her, like, you have lovely eyes, and that was I don't know if that's that way for everything, but that was like the passphrase for the luggage. And so, we went into, I was like, we got to go to the gift shop. We got to get a picture of Gaia so we can have her sign it. And that's going to be our cover for like going and talking to her. So we turned it into this whole like, role play moment, which was great. Of course, that's on the second night. By that time, my 13-year-old was all in. Like he's totally into the whole thing. So it was perfect.
That's great.
Well, I love it. Hosting a show, we always try to think of like shorthand, how you can describe which actor played which role, because there's multiple people playing. Gaston Wraith is perfect. That's like the best description of that particular actor in that role. I'm stealing that. That's great.
Sarah, let's go next to you. What paths did you follow?
All 3 of us ended up doing the Resistance, which I guess I naturally, like I said, I have a tattoo for the Rebel Alliance. It kind of just made sense for me to go that route. I would definitely do something different next time, but I loved the Resistance path. There was a moment early on, I think it was the first night that my mom ended up gravitating over towards where the captain was and was talking to the captain. And the captain's like, oh, why don't you have, talk to the droid and have him scan your band or whatever. And so she got something different that my dad and I didn't get, because she took that opportunity, and then it led her a little bit differently, still the resistance, but a little bit differently than what we got to do, because my dad and I were just like, I think we had drinks and we were just talking and having a good time. I wasn't like fully invested yet. And so I wasn't thinking, oh, let's go talk to characters. Let's go talk to the cast members. So we really enjoyed that. I think there was a lot of really cool opportunities. I know there was one moment where I had to, I probably a lot of people ended up having to go to the cargo hold to like find something, and I happened to be in there when the stormtroopers came in, and they were not very nice about making sure that we left very quickly. And I thought that was kind of cool as well. And we ended up being in engineering as like the final group of the night on that second night. And so we had a really great moment down there with Lenka and Chewbacca and everything before everyone was ushered upstairs. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought that the conversations that we got to have with the cast members throughout the whole voyage were really exciting, and that you could like personalize your moments, right? Like I said, with my mom, she had a different moment than we did because we were too busy with our drinks and hanging out, and she took advantage of a moment that we didn't have.
Well, let's stick to resistance. Elizabeth, you told us you were also the resistance path. What did you do?
That's true. So I think that my backstory kind of ended up informing how I behaved more than I even really expected that it would, because my idea was, okay, during the time that the cruise takes place, the First Order is sort of ransacking Corellia for Star Destroyer parts for Exegol, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So nice. My idea is, maybe they're looking into businesses and stuff there, and my business is one of them, so I'm trying to get the heck out of Dodge for a little while. And when I got there, then they show up, of course, on the cruise, and I'm like, I can't get away from these guys for 5 minutes.
These guys again?
Yeah, and it manifested in me being like as rude and antagonistic to the stormtroopers every moment that I had the chance to. And I think that also kind of signaled to some of the cast and stuff that I came to play. Because even though I am an introvert, I have what I like to call the drama kid loophole, where I'll act a fool in the right situations, where I know the rules of engagement, right? So the first night that I was there, I had a few ideas of stuff that I might want to say to different characters or whatever when I was on board. And as soon as I got on board, all of that went out the window. You can think it might turn out one way, and then when you get there, Starcruiser takes you where it wants to take you. Yeah. The first night that I'm there, me and my parents are hanging out in the Sublight, and Sandro just walks up to us, and we end up doing the protest song thing. He's like, how'd you feel about the First Order? And then interrupting Gaia's performance and stuff during dinner. And I'm like, I thought that was so horrible. I hate them. We should throw them out of the airlock. We ended up like singing, making a song about that. And then, of course, there's some stormtroopers that appear across the atrium. And he's like, oh, come on, let's go sing our song to them. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. And it was amazing. But that sort of ushered me into the full resistance path, I feel like, oddly enough, by singing that protest song to them immediately.
That's awesome.
And then later that night, I'm just putzing around the ship trying to see what kind of trouble I can get into, and run into them, of course, sneaking Chewbacca around. So then for the next 45 to 50 minutes, I'm just helping sneak Chewbacca around. And that intersected with the point where you get the schematic from Sammy for the TIE mission on Batuu. When I tapped my band to get that schematic, he asked me my name, and I looked at him and I said, anything I can do to help take the bastards down. And I guess he took that pretty seriously, because then he asked for my help, like 3 other different things.
Oh, that's great.
So I ended up getting recruited full resistance, and I had the time of my life. It was fantastic.
So are you going to sing a couple of bars of the protest song?
Well, it was sort of a glorified Green Day song.
Nice.
But the hook was, we are going to throw you out of the airlock.
That's great.
I remember the one that we wrote was, the First Order is the worst order.
That's so great. Oh my God. I haven't heard like that many other protest songs, and that is so, that's fantastic.
I love it, but every cruise is different.
Yep.
That's how good they are.
Well, you mentioned some stormtrooper interactions. So, Jess, I got to go to you now. I know you were coming into play as a stormtrooper. What path did you follow?
I did First Order, and I wanted to go hard into First Order, which is what I did. But I also, did like half of the rom-com. And one of the things that I love about like the Starcruiser is that I still, even with everything that I have, tried to research and watch everything, I still think that there's like, you could blend way more paths than you could think. Because one of the things that, and I didn't do, which I'm going to do this time, because I didn't want like Croy to get mad at me. And the Croy that I got, he was like the one that I wanted. He's like the redhead one. I think he's played by Adam Riley. He's great. So as soon as he came out in the atrium, like I almost fainted. I felt, like a teenager again, because I'm like, yes, it's him. And I also got the Gaston Wraith though, which made it really hard for like a second, because I'm like, this guy is so beautiful. Like, I have like the opportunity to hang out with him for 48 hours, but no, like I pledge my allegiance to Croy. Right. But since I did, do some stuff with Sandro, since he saw that, I was like hard in like the First Order, one of the things he's like, should we write a song for Croy? I think Croy just wants like a friend, so it's just so interesting, like how many paths there are and how much of this is improv. And, like the characters, it's like no cruise is ever going to be the same. So that was really interesting. But I did, have a little bit of FOMO over not doing like a lot of the Force stuff. But now that I know, I think you could do First Order, Force, and rom-com all together without, getting in trouble with the First Order. So that's going to be like my mission for next time, and see like how much of those things I could do. Although it's, how it is. It's like, yep. It's just too short to do everything. I wish we had like a third day to be able to do more stuff. With Croy, it was awesome. Like just being around him, he is so quick. So just like, we did have like our main like missions. And again, like as soon as he came out, like I let him know, like I'm here to like help in like whatever way I can. So sometimes the stormtroopers would ask, my help for backup, to be like the third stormtrooper. That's
awesome.
And, like getting people to, settle down or whatever, which was so much fun. But yeah, like again, just like seeing Croy interact with the kids during, our missions and our times with him, that was like a highlight, because he is just so quick and so funny.
Well, Brian Anderson, I think you actually have a little bit of insight into the path that she's talking about. Can you tell us about what you did?
So I was completely all over the place. I was a spoiler person going into it. So my objectives were kind of set. I wanted to spend some time with Wraith and go down those paths. And I knew going down there, I was already in process of building the SK620 that I have here. So I needed a lot of kind of face time with the droid, particularly because of the color matching. So leading up to this, I had a friend that was working at Imagineering at the time. And one day he sent me this cryptic text message that said, I just saw something. You're going to want one, but the paint is super weird. And months and months and months later, it turned out to be SK. But so I was like, okay, my mission, droid Wraith. So I get there, and somehow I immediately fell into First Order. And a lot of it had to do with one of my fellow travelers. He's also a 501st member, and his backstory is that he served the Empire back in the day. And since the Empire's collapse, he's been drifting and trying to get together. So he told Croy that, and we became Croy's best buddies. So we're hanging out with Croy, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm First Order. That wasn't my plan, but I'll roll with it. And then we didn't spend much time on Batuu. We kind of like got in and out because we were Disney regulars and didn't want to waste time on planet. And I ended up chatting with a Saja in the atrium. And at one point, the same Saja was like, actually it was the Gaston Saja. He was like, nice. Can I get your help with something? We need to go down to the cargo hold. And it was to move SK out of the cargo hold and into the saber training room.
How cool is that?
So like, awesome.
Nice.
Okay, the Force is with me. I'm in a one-on-one mission basically with SK. This is great. And so all goes well. And he's like, actually, there's another thing going on. Can I count on you for help? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go to get Rey off of Batuu and onto the Halcyon. I'm like, wait a minute. I wanted to be Scoundrel, but I was First Order. But I'm standing here in a hallway with Rey, and she's so sincere. And now I feel like the spark is ignited, and I'm all in on the resistance. And so now I'm helping the resistance. And then we ended up in the right place at the right time with Wraith later. So then, we were smuggling coaxium across the atrium. I'm like, wait, so now I'm the scoundrel path? By the end of it, I had high familiarity and high trust with every faction on the ship.
That's awesome. That's a feat.
And
that's a feat.
I didn't use the data pad hardly at all. Like, I didn't scan in on much of anything. I just flowed from one thing to the next. I'm like, I don't even know what happened, but it was amazing, and I want it again.
That's great.
It was wild, though.
That's called the button presses. I mean, that's it.
Absolutely. Yep. Somebody presses the button, and they know who you are. Well, you mentioned the Jedi Path, and Brian Shapiro, let's go over to you. I believe you had some familiarity, or you were going in with some Jedi sensitivity, or...
Yeah, so I went in pretty spoiler free, but I did something happened. I did find out about the Yoda seat.
Okay.
So I thought, oh, well, that's something I really would like to see. So I'm going to go in and try and follow whatever has to do with the Jedi. So when we first arrived, we kind of gravitated towards the Sajas and stuff like that. But the Wraith, and while that's happening, I mean, the Wraith and the Sammy on our trip were amazing. We had the Jason Keller. I think Jason Keller's his name, Wraith.
Yes.
Yep.
And he has this personality and this laugh and everything like that. And the Sammy on our trip also was just a very endearing, earnest kind of guy. The way he played it. We were starting to do some of their stuff because their stuff begins early on. But we did talk to Asaja. I did do the rock thing, and then at some point after lightsaber training, we got a message. Do you want to pursue more? With the Force. And in scrolling, my thumb hit the wrong thing, and I accidentally hit no.
Oh no!
And it locked me out. And I even asked at the front desk. I said, I didn't mean to hit this answer. Can I? And they said that there's nothing you can do. It is what it is.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
I've since found out that we could have kind of begged or worked our way into, I guess, that part, but I only wanted to do things that happened organically. And at that point, I was already having such a good time with the Wraith and Sammy that I was, all in on that. And I actually found the Force thing in the climate simulator to be a very fulfilling kind of an experience. It was very personal, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I also wanted to, Star Wars, I wanted to have, an action adventure kind of a story. So in the end, it was really incredible, the synergy between what happens on Batuu and on the ship. I mean, we were on Batuu and bumped into V. Maradi, and I had read the Black Spire book, so I was kind of looking for that character when we were there. And it was my first time to Batuu, on this trip as well.
Okay.
And she was there with Chewbacca, and they were telling us how the Falcon is there and the Falcon is damaged, and they need to find a way to repair it. Next thing you know, we're in Smuggler's Run, and Chewie makes the deal to give the Falcon to Hondo to steal the coaxium, which we knew Wraith and Gaia were going to help us get in exchange for these repairs for the Falcon. Once we were back up on the ship, now we're part of the bridge crew helping Hondo safely deliver the coaxium
nice.
To the Halcyon. At that point, it's confiscated, and I just happened to be standing by the steps when Wraith asked me to, keep an eye on so he could go up and steal back some of the calcium. The coaxium. The coaxium.
It makes perfect sense.
The coaxium. And then at some point, Sammy gave me the coaxium in a suitcase to sneak past the First Order to be there in engineering when he had to use the data tapes that we also helped to get. So, just from the whole coaxium storyline from start to finish, it was quite an adventure. I mean,
that's awesome.
I'm a 55-year-old guy. I'm crawling through a vent on the floor and the floor of the brig to get into engineering. So and then in dealing with Wraith, we ended up with the whole heist thing, and and that was a lot of fun. At one point, I had to set off a silent alarm and stand by the hyperspace compass and see what happens. So, I key in, do what I have to do. I'm standing by myself by the hyperspace compass. And then two stormtroopers come by and they got right in my face and they said, the alarm went off and you're the only person standing here. Why are you here? So luckily that's next to the front desk and guest services where they have all these snacks. So I quickly took out a Rice Krispie treat and just started scarfing it down. Like, oh, I'm just here for a Rice Krispie treat. Yeah, can I get you guys one? And the stormtrooper just went, go. So
that's great.
Just kind of walked, slinked away, and was there then to help with the whole heist thing. So in the end, in hindsight, I think Elizabeth said it best. You can go in with whatever plan you want, but Starcruiser is going to do to you what Starcruiser is going to do to you, and in the end, it was probably even more fulfilling than I could have expected, and just amazing how much it in concert the things in Galaxy's Edge and up on the ship work together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Keith and Dee, you also, I think we talked to you. You also had some Jedi inklings. How did your paths go?
I grew up wanting to be a Jedi. In fact, I had my daughters convinced I was the retired Obi-Wan Kenobi when they were young. And so I wanted to go 100% in Jedi. Dee being a Leia Organa fan, she wanted to be with the Resistance. And so we kind of tried to pursue those, but it ended up kind of just going slowly, less than we expected.
Okay.
Did have a couple of good interactions with the captain. Actually met her once in the climate simulator. And had a really nice conversation with her there, but didn't dynamically do a ton. But we did just enough between interacting with the Sajas and the captain and Lenka and on the Batu that we were able to do the Yoda thing at the end, which was tear inspiring.
Oh, yes.
And the great thing was everyone comes up there on their calendar says advanced. It said something like
advanced lightsaber training.
Advanced lightsaber training, something like that. And so you get there and the crew members say, "Are you here for the Gaia fan club?" Like, no. And so I said, "Yes, you are." But so we kind of followed that and weren't as dynamic with the crew members as we had hoped. Because, again, we weren't ready for it. But we had the most dynamic last-minute experience with the captain before the grand finale.
Nice.
That I would want anyone to have. Yes. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's we wanted to spend a lot more time with the captain. If you may have heard some of the episodes, and the captain is just one of the characters that I think there's got to be depths to plumb there.
Yes.
To find from her story on the truth. And I highly recommend, if you haven't already, the Halcyon Legacy comic book series. They just released the trade paperback. So if you guys haven't read it, it's only $14 on Amazon right now. I happen to know because I bought it last night. It's actually fun because you get a little bit more of the captain, and it's a lot of fun.
So I want to talk a little bit about Batu, specifically to those of you who this was your first time on Batu as part of Galactic Starcruiser. So Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on going to Batu for the first time and the integration of that trip with Starcruiser.
Well, I will say that I've been living vicariously through YouTube videos and stuff about Batu since it opened, but even though I live in Georgia, which is still relatively close, it's pretty rare that I get down to Walt Disney World. After going on the Starcruiser, that seems like it might change because I feel like if I don't go back there, I might actually die. But I thought it was so great. The experiences complemented each other so well, and the feeling of continuity was the thing that stuck out the most to me. Like you meet these characters on the ship and stuff. You go to Batu and you have these tasks to complete for them. And then it's like it matters when you get back. Like seeing little messages from people that you talk to or whatever on the ship pop up while you're walking around in the park was just something so extra special that really, I don't know. And I love RPGs, video games and stuff. Like I'm a big fan of Fallout and Mass Effect and stuff like that. And I was astonished at how much the experience really reminded me of just doing that in real life. So I loved every moment of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Brian Shapiro, what about you?
So this was also my first time there. So we didn't want to arrive the morning that we were supposed to depart on the cruise. So we did arrive a day early, and everyone recommended, you might want to go into Batu, before you do the Starcruiser. So, and we had reservations for Ogas and to do the lightsabers while we were part of the Starcruiser, but I had another set for that day in case, because right now with airlines canceling, we weren't sure we would actually get there, but it worked out fine that the day that we got there, we did the lightsaber at Savi's, and we built droids and and everything. And before I went down, I had read a lot of the books. I had read the Halcyon comics, so I was familiar with a lot of the lore behind Batuu, and so it was a lot of fun walking around. Like my friend, he likes Star Wars, but I think a lot of what he knows is really just the movies and shows and things. So the whole time I'm walking around like this is this, and even the Lycans on the walls mean something. And I had read Princess and the Scoundrel,
nice.
before I went, and there's a moment where Han etches his and Leia's initials somewhere in the Halcyon, and that was the first thing I wanted to find as soon as I got on the ship.
Sure.
We went right to we went right to engineering, but you couldn't go right into engineering. Mm-hmm. We didn't realize you didn't have access right away.
Not immediately.
We had to somehow get in. Right. So we worked our way in, and even now I'm really enjoying a lot of the lore around it. Even I've read a lot of the High Republic books, and the Halcyon has a major part in towing Starlight Beacon in one of the books. And now there's a new book that actually just came out where two characters just happen to mention that two Jedi are going somewhere where there's a conflict, and one just has this throwaway line like, "Oh, this reminds me of a conflict on Ryloth," and the other Jedi says, "Well, what happened?" "Oh, it was just this thing because a stone had been stolen."
Oh, wow, that's awesome! That's so cool.
And that's the end of the conversation. And I looked, I'm like, "Well, how many stones could have been stolen on Ryloth?" And I thought, this is the Hyananea stone, and
that's great.
And I'm part of the group that recovered it. Like I know how that turns out, and another reader might not know what they're even referring to. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really great. But Batuu was exceeded all expectations. Like when they first announced, I thought I'm going to see Hoth, I'm going to see Tatooine, and then I heard it's going to be its own original thing, not either one. And I'm so glad they did that, made it its own unique planet with its own stories and things like that. So that was definitely the way to go.
Yeah, when Brian emailed that to me, that little, excerpt from the book, I was freaking out. I was like, I held that stone. Oh my gosh.
It's interesting. Disney has a real kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't about putting the Halcyon in other media, is that they want to reference it, but they can't get specific about a lot of things. Like, it's hard for them to put the Halcyon in a TV show, because then you've got exactly what Captain Kevin looks like, what Sammy looks like, and it's harder to buy into different people playing that role. So it's kind of an interesting thing where they want to reference it, but the more specific they get, it starts tying off things. So it's kind of just a interesting story quandary they have.
Right. Well, Jim, tell us about your first time to Batuu
with your kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I wanted to do from day one. I'm like, we are going to go there. And I had a buddy who knew an Imagineer, so he flew there for opening day. Actually, it was the preview day, and I was like, oh my god, this is killing me, because he wasn't even that big of a fan. So I've been like counting the days to finally get there, and it was awesome. I mean, we were just racing in there and just wanted to do all the things. And again, my kids really liked it, but they're not into it as much. And so my older son was really disappointed with himself, because we did Smuggler's Run and he was, the co-pilot. So of course I'm flying, he's flying. And he was like, oh man, I think I let Dad down. I'm like, no, you did great.
Yeah. You have to sleep downstairs for the rest of the week, but it's okay.
Right. But yeah, we had a great time, and going, days before going on the Halcyon was absolutely the way to go. So we did the lightsaber training, we did Ogas, we did all that stuff. So we didn't feel compelled to do all those things. The morning of, we were like on a mission to do our missions, and that was the right way to do it. But yeah, I mean, I think I broke the bank on merch.
That's what the bank's for.
That's right. But yeah, between the first day we were down there and all the stuff that I bought, and then all the stuff from the Halcyon gift shop, by the time we were done, and when the second night ended, and it was like, oh, now there's going to be a reception in on the bridge, and like the meet and greet thing, and I didn't know that was still going to be sort of tied to the story. And so I'm like, I got to go back to my room and get all this stuff packed, because we're flying out in the morning. And so I was in a panic about like trying to fit everything in my luggage. We had packed smaller suitcases inside of bigger suitcases, because I knew we were going to come home with so much stuff. And yeah, so that's actually my one regret, is that we didn't stick around and do the dessert thing where you get to hang out more with the cast.
Yeah, sure.
We left clothes behind, so we could
that first trip you absolutely did.
We don't need it.
We don't need this anymore. So, right. I have other plaid shirts for George. Cool.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the things that maybe we didn't anticipate. I know some of us were spoiler heavy, some of us were not spoilers, blah, 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 but I really want to know from you guys what surprised you most about the voyage. Let's start with you, Brian Anderson.
So for me, I think what surprised me the most is how much I bought into it. So I've been doing the Star Wars character appearance thing for a long time, and I've done all sorts of types of events, usually where I'm the character and I'm like interacting with other people. So I was like, I'm going to be like all jaded and be like nitpicking their costumes and like critiquing their performances and whatever. And when I found myself in the tunnel with Rey, and she was giving us this big motivational speech, I got so caught up in it. All my friends that were with me, we got completely sucked in. And like there's one point where like I got sent to distract Croy because he was going to find Rey. So I had to like come up with this story, and I like run down and I'm out of breath. I'm like, Lieutenant Croy, I just saw someone vandalizing Gaia's music equipment in the Crown of Corellia. You've got to go help. And he like grabbed the stormtroopers and he ran like in a panic with them. And then I ran back and I'm like, "He's God, it's okay." And like we're all like panting out of breath. And at one point we looked at each other, we're like, "You realize that space isn't actually in jeopardy right now, right?" Like, but we got so into it and it felt so real at the time that even with all my expected jadedness, I just completely surrendered to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, even off the ship, like months after, I don't think of Galactic Starcruiser as a building. It's just a building, but I never think about it as a ship.
Yep.
Isn't that just crazy? Like that suspension of disbelief endures.
Yeah.
Like it's just a building. And I never, ever think about it that way.
I still don't. Especially once you get on board.
I'm saying the words and I'm not buying into that it's a building. It's not a building. It's a ship.
Yeah. How about you, Elizabeth? What surprised you about the voyage?
Sort of the same type of thing. The amount of, first of all, the way that it's designed to allow every guest on board to have like a certain amount of intimacy with the characters and stuff. You want that. Like you can really have a personal moment with them. Astonished me. Like I just didn't think that would be logistically possible, but I guess they've worked it out and broken the schedule down into chunks where you can. Like, and it broke my brain. You know, I'm a person who has a little bit of theater experience, and I work at a haunted house seasonally and stuff. So I've seen how the sausage is made sometimes with things like that. I just disappeared into that story while I was there, and it absolutely broke my brain. I was lucky enough that in our like bridge training, our Sammy asked me to help him take the ship to light speed.
Oh, that's great.
And that broke my brain. It absolutely annihilated my brain. I've never had anything that wild happen to me before. Just how literally you get to like live your Star Wars dream. Like, of course, the marketing is going to say stuff like that.
Sure.
When I got there, it just exceeded my expectations on how much you could literally make that feel the way that it does.
Yeah, and it's great that you had made that connection with Sammy the night before and had that knowledge of the character, and to make it not just a moment between you and the actor, but it was a moment between you and Sammy. I mean, how cool is that?
I want to send that guy a gift basket.
Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, I think that for me, going so early and being completely spoiler-free, I think that I was just so overwhelmed and surprised with how immersive it was. I remember back in the very early days when there were rumblings of a Star Wars hotel at Disney that they were going to work on. And I mean, in my head, I was thinking, deluxe resort type, themed, etc. And I was like, even that, like, that sounds awesome. I will stay at that hotel, even though I don't usually stay at the really expensive hotels at Disney. I'll do it. And then once we learn more about it being, this short-term experience, and actually they used, the word experience and the word immersive and everything, that still surprised me in the moment. I just remember walking into the atrium and just like my jaw just fell open.
Yeah.
And I was just completely overwhelmed from the first second we got on there. I think that what is so cool about it, similar to what Elizabeth was saying, is the cast and the crew and how every voyage is going to be different for them. And yet they treat every voyage like it's the only one. And everybody can have a different experience on your voyage versus everything I'm hearing here about other people's voyages, and how every moment can be extraordinarily different. I know you were talking about like protest songs and everything. I didn't get to experience any of that, but like the end of the voyage, that second night where they're giving like the speeches at the end, Sandro was talking and he made really great quips about, you know, the fact that Joey Fatone was there, and he made some comment like everyone was super in sync with each other. And like even right, moments like that, where that was something that happened on my voyage in particular, and those cast members were able to incorporate it. And we all knew, right? Everyone who was there knew exactly who that was. And so we all had that moment, even if we never interacted with him or weren't on his path or anything. And I found that just completely incredible.
Jim, how about you and your family?
Yeah, I mean, sort of in line with everyone else. I mean, the level of immersion and the fact that the actor is right from the minute you get off the elevator, it just pulls you right in. So even if you're not sure what to expect or you don't know what kind of engagement you're going to get, they see it. And like you say, if you come to play and you're wearing something that makes it look like you're invested that way, they seem to know just the right way to approach you. I mean, my wife was not into it at all. My younger son was into it, but he was intimidated by it. You know, I was all in, and they just knew how to engage with each of us, even within our party, like exactly how to talk to them. And that blew me away. Yeah. And the characters were so well drawn for such a short period of time that by the end you did feel like you knew them as their characters. And if I have one quibble, I wish that the gift shop did sell action figures of them, like the little thing when you get off and you're no longer in the universe. I don't know why they don't have more action figures. They should have more.
Exactly what he just said.
Yes, please.
Jess, how about you? What surprised you about the voyage?
Well, I'm a novelist in real life. I'm going to like manifest right now that like, I'm going to, in real life, going to audition to do like Star Wars IP next fall. So hopefully you guys will be reading one of my Star Wars novels one day. But I think as a novelist, what surprised me so much is like the amount of participation that it takes for the story to unfold. Like every single group in every room, there's like part of the story unfolding, even if you're not in that room. So seeing it all play out and how it connects at the end, I think is what surprised me. And I was so impressed by that. And then, just how much I would bond with some of the people. Like me and Sandro, we pretended that we were brother and sister. And so I just was not expecting any of that. So my quibble, I think, would be that because we bonded so much with some of the characters, I did want more closure at the end before it ended. But I just think how big of a story it is and how many players it takes to tell it. That's what surprised me the most.
Well, I like the moment that we talked, Jess, you mentioned this earlier, is that there's always that moment of who are we going to get as far as the cast. And there's that you've got butterflies in your stomach. You're going to be there 100%, no matter what cast member you get. But there's that anticipation of who's going to be my Wraith, who's going to be my guy, who's going to be, and I think that's really fun.
Oh yeah, no question. Keith and Dee, what was your surprises that you had for your voyage?
Well, my surprise was how much there was to accomplish. I kind of expected going in, there'd be a few key moments, other than that, just kind of relaxing and enjoying the ambiance. But I was just shocked at how much there was to do, both on the ship and then down on Batuu. Almost overwhelming, but a lot of fun.
Yes, that was a lot of things to do. I was impressed with the amount of knowledge the crew had of us and what we were doing in our past. I said, there's got to be something. My theory is there's a camera on them somewhere and someone's listening and someone's typing and someone's talking to them. Because I said, how are they remembering all of this?
Yeah, and we did find out from one of our previous guests who did a lot of the AV, believe it or not, he says they don't have that they just figure out a way to, I don't know if they've all studied memory games or do whatever.
Memory mechanics, yeah.
I mean, they do have the earpiece, so somebody's got to slip them a little bit something every once in a while. Again, Jess, I'm sure somebody said solo on 4. I just love that. But believe it or not, from what he told us, a lot of it is just they remember that Dee, you're this character, and Keith, you're this character, and just
Yeah, the earpiece is really just to key them in on what's happening on the ship. That Wraith is moving, Guy is, Croy is just so they can time the events better. They're not feeding information about us, which that blew me away.
It's astounding.
That blew me away. I thought for sure there was the person in the cloud saying, Jorks are cool in the atrium.
No one mentioned this, but to me, I've never been on a cruise before because I get motion sickness, and I was expecting to have some type of maybe movement in the building or so.
Sure.
Not a bit. I thought, oh, that was great. That was great. And the food, absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a scratch cook, and oh my goodness, I was enjoying every bite.
Oh yeah. That was especially that second voyage.
Oh, boy.
We were gluttons that second trip. That was great.
I'm gonna steal a line from Pirates of the Caribbean: "Take what you can, give nothing back."
Thank you,
Brian Shapiro. How about you? What was something you were surprised about on the voyage?
Well, like I said, I went there thinking, I want action and I want adventure, and I went there and I ended up in a musical. I was surprised how musical the trip was. I saw in the promos, the picture of Gaia. I thought, okay, to Star Wars it up, when we're having dinner or something, they're going to bring someone out dressed as a Twi'lek and perform or do something. So, and I hadn't seen her prior to dinner. We were the early dinner seating, but I knew something was up when I met, Wani in the, in the lobby, and I saw just how sophisticated, with the mouth movements and everything. I thought, wow, this is really like, where's her head in there? How are they putting that in the animatronics? And then, there we are at dinner, and Gaia walked out, and it was, what, and then before you know it, she's not only an unbelievable performer but central to the whole plot because she's an operative and all this other stuff. So and all of the music that they wrote for her. I mean, it's not like direct to video kind of music. These are some really really great songs that luckily I recorded some of them, or I look for them on YouTube and listen to them. I was really glad at the end that I listened and went to the dessert to see Sandro and Wani perform One Galaxy, because that song has been stuck in my head for the last 2 months. So just each song was better than the one before it. So that was the last thing I expected in a Star Wars adventure.
I'm going to piggyback off of something Jim said a little bit ago. Is okay, we all want action figures. We know that. Why aren't they selling us the Gaia music?
It's going to happen.
Like,
it's
come on. I would have plunked down $30
easy
instantly to walk out of there with all the Gaia music.
With the minor exception of Uka Shuka. That's the only one that sticks sometimes poorly, but man, the rest of those songs are bangers.
They're bangers, all of them.
Yeah.
So we've all talked about this, and I know for us too, whenever we first went on our trip in March, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And that's the way we treated it when we got on board. Once in a lifetime, we're going to make the most of it. And within 2 weeks, we were like, no, we can't do that just once. I go along with Elizabeth, where if we don't go back, we're probably going to die, which is why we've already gone back while we have another trip planned. So I know that we talked a little bit before we got online that a couple of you are going back for May 4th.
2023.
Oh, sorry, 2023. So I know that Brian Anderson is going back in May, and I think Keith and Diane, you're going back in May as well?
Yes.
So we'll see on that.
But Keith and Dee, you've got another trip planned even before the May voyage.
Yes. So we had initially started talking to our family about going in 2025. And my parents were both over 80. We looked at them and said, they won't enjoy it then. So we're going to take them now.
Nice.
And so we are taking my parents, all three of our adult children, and at least one of their children along. We have an 11-person crew.
Wow.
We are taking from February 8th to 10th. And then we are going back for our anniversary, which is May 5th. And we're going to do the 3 to 5 May trip with all of you.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, can't wait to see you.
Yeah, I want to see those pictures. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be lots of fun.
And then, Jess, you're going back for your birthday.
Yes. So I'm going to be on the same cruise as Dee and Keith. because so I'm going to be on that voyage. So this is truly like a Star Wars family. Like I am so excited. And for sure, I have some other trips, not to the Galactic Starcruiser planned, but if my budget allows, and if there's room, I will be, I want to keep on going. This is going to be at least once a year experience for me. Or else I would die. So maybe those two.
Well, and again, just as we've mentioned on some episodes, sorry to interrupt, Christine, it's just as good the second time. Yep. When we heard that, we were like, what? No, how could it be? It was just as good. And I know that,
it was better.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the repeat voyages, this is something that you can go on multiple times and find new ways to enjoy the experience, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, let's actually wrap it up with one of the signature questions we have for all of our Sublight Circle groups. And it's so much fun to hear everyone's wildly different but so creative responses is, how would you describe the Galactic Starcruiser experience in 5 words or less? And let's kind of just go around the room. Elizabeth, how would you describe Galactic Starcruiser 5 words or less?
That is a very tall order because there are so many words I want to use. But I'm going to go with a safe, warm, welcoming hug.
Oh, that's great. Yes, it was.
Magical.
It was, no question.
Sarah, 5 words.
I would say completely overwhelming, unforgettable, once in a lifetime experience.
I love it.
Okay, we got some hyphenates in there.
They have hyphens, yes.
We'll allow it. That was awesome. Brian Shapiro.
Well, at first I was thinking Star Wars dream come true, but then to steal lyrics from one of Gaia's songs, I think I would actually say now, welcome to the new world. Because your life is different after you do this, and it becomes all you think about and you talk about, and everyone hates you for that. But no, it's I think that actually sums it up better.
That's awesome. That's fabulous.
Jess, what would you describe Galactic Starcruiser?
Well, since the last couple of years have not been fun because of the panini. I described it as the Halcyon guided me home because it was just a heart and a brain reset. And just being there, it reminded me of all the good that there is in the world and all of the, the stuff about myself in the world that we haven't been able to enjoy and express for the last couple of years.
Oh, that's great.
I got to say, whenever I read that one actually made me tear up.
Yep. Yeah, Christine's like, you want to cry? I'm like, sure, I'd like to cry. She's like, read this. And then we both cried.
I knew we were going to tear up, Christine.
Of course.
Brian, how would you describe the Galactic Starcruiser? Brian Anderson, how would you describe Galactic Starcruiser?
So I think about this a lot because, in my general social circles, everybody talks about it all the time. And I go back and forth between it's a totally unique Star Wars experience and it's better than you think it is. Because no matter how good you think it is, it's better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that because it's so. We waited for so many years for every little detail coming out of this, and we just kept asking, "Can Disney stick the landing?"
And those meetings we had, again, we talk about it all the time. Those breakfast meetings. If they do this, and this, and this, it'll be, and they did all of it. Yeah,
I love that. It's better than you think it is. Couldn't say it better. Keith, how would you describe Galactic Starcruiser?
Well, I've always thought it was lived my Star Wars dream, but as we've been talking, I realized I began my Star Wars walk.
Oh, that's great. That's good. That's beautiful. I love it.
I'm writing. I'm literally the answers we get from these are just magical.
Yeah.
Dee, how would you describe Galactic Starcruiser 5 words or less?
A childhood dream come true.
If you told the 5-year-old sitting in the movie theater seeing Star Wars the first time that this would be a thing.
Oh yeah. I'd be sitting in the corner going, when is it going to get here? When is it going to get here?
I want to fast forward my life months until I'm back on this ship. I mean, I just want to get back there as soon as... I love that. That's exactly what it is. Jim, how would you describe Galactic Starcruiser?
Well, I have to stay on brand. thinking back to when I was a little kid playing out, Star Wars, not having seen it and trying to imagine what it was really going to look like, when I finally did get to see it. This is kind of the opposite, effect. It was my 5 words were action figures come to life. Because it really does feel like it. It feels like, I don't know, it's just amazing.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us for this episode of the Heroes of the Halcyon, our Sublight Circle. A personal thank you to Brian Anderson, Brian Shapiro, Keith N.D. Davis, Elizabeth Baker, Jess Para, Sarah Reck, and Jim Braden. Thank you so much for your time today, guys. I have to share, this is an audio medium, but we write notes back and forth with each other when we're going, and it'll be hard for you to read this, but I wrote a little while ago, this is awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, guys.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It was awesome. Thanks.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, that was an absolute blast.
So much fun. My cheeks were hurting. Smiling so freaking much.
The Sublight Circle really is one of our very favorite type of episodes to do. To get to hear everyone's thoughts on Starcruiser. Everyone here listening, you are the heroes of the Halcyon.
No question. And when we were putting together this group, I will admit that wait, we have how many people coming? And so we just decided again, well, let's go through the prep material that we did. That's a great content. And just hearing the stories that everybody had and hearing about their voyages and hearing new things like that piece with SK being brought into the lightsaber dojo.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I've never heard that from anyone.
Yeah.
All these little story pieces. We talk about Starcruiser and people's experiences on Starcruiser probably more than anyone else on the planet.
Probably.
And there's still pieces of this that we're hearing for the first time, and I love that.
Yeah, that was just so much fun. I'm so glad that we have listeners who are kind enough to join us, and we look forward to having more Sublight Circles in the future.
Yes. Well, it's kind of funny that we got a message while we were recording this episode from 2 of our listeners, Nicole and Brian in Florida, that they're doing a 20-hour road trip and downloaded our entire catalog of episodes and are having a HOTH, Heroes of the Halcyon marathon. So.
Well, we hope we can entertain them along their way.
Absolutely. Well, if people wanted to find us on the interwebs, Christine, how would they do so?
You can find us on Instagram at Heroes of the Halcyon, on Twitter at Halcyon_Heroes, on the Hive social at Halcyon Heroes, and you can always email us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well.
Well, it's always fun to shoot the poodoo with all the Starcruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast.
Tabooite!